Welcome to the Starting Over podcast training series. I am your host, Edward Shelton, aka Dark Logos. And in this section of the training series, we're going to be looking at telekinesis. Telekinesis is a very simple to use power, but has multiple layers of, of advantages that can be taken from it. So let's get into it. Telekinesis. Give this character a power action and designate another target character or object A in the designated square B. The character A and B must all be within 8 squares in line of fire of each other. Place A in B. If A is a character, it must be a single base character and possess the standard damage symbol. If A is an opposing character, make a close or ranged combat attack that deals no damage against A, and only place the character in B if the target is hit. If A is an object and B is occupied by an by an opposing character, this character may make a ranged combat attack targeting the character occupying B, dealing object damage and destroying the object A. Characters that has been placed by telekinesis this turn can't use telekinesis this turn. All right. It's like, wow, that's a lot. So let's sort of get into it. The first major advantage of telekinesis is pure and simple. You're able to move figures around and they can take actions afterward. Why did telekinesis become a major power? After no action after taxi, in which previously characters could be carried, flown around, and then take actions. After they ruled saying like, oh no, we're not allowing that, and flyers can't carry flyers, then the game sort of changed because you had this run and gun wild wild west offense, and now things start to slow down. And we all know in any sort of strategy or tactics game, how you're able to initiate that first attack is crucial. So we have telekinesis. Telekinesis comes into the forefront. We can move characters around. Now, in this part of the training series, it may be a little bit more complex than some of the other parts, or you might feel that it's a little bit more dry. Please bear with me. Because this is one of the main powers that's going to really increase your standard of play. All right. So the main thing that we have to look at in telekinesis is the multi-staged attack. Okay, we have to look at your whole offensive campaign. If you do not know what your whole offensive campaign is, you have a problem in team design, because you need to know what your team is doing. When you incorporate telekinesis into your team design, mobility of a key figure or several figures is the focus. You are not running a entrenched warfare. You're not like, barrier, attack. After I place barrier, attack. Now place barrier. You're not moving up slowly. Okay, and then fortifying. You're like, sling me with that super mental mind rocket, son. I'm coming guns blazing. Okay, that is more the mindset of telekinesis. Does that mean that you don't use barrier with TK? No, you fully can. Smoke cloud, anything else. But TK's main goal is to really take offensive option 1 and then place it to deal with obstacle A. I know that sounds completely confusing, but bear with me. You take offensive option 1 so that it can deal with the opposing obstacle A. Okay, so you're always going to have your figure able to be moved out and take a shot or do whatever it needs to on another target that is a problem from you carrying out your offense. Okay? So with that, I'm mainly going to, saying about moving a figure out there. You move that figure out 8, they can running shot, they can hypersonic speed, they can charge. They can do all those things at the beginning of the game. Many people then say, that's it, chop chop, my TKing is over. No, your TKing is not over, nor should it be over. Your TKing should have just begun. Okay? This is where we go into the mid game on TK. TK should be used to be removing assets around the board. Now, what is an asset? Anything that benefits you. If I need to really get in 5 damage on that figure and I have a super strength charger with 3 damage and the heavy object is out of range, guess what? I have 2 options. I either can A, TK the object to my super strength character so he can pick it up, or B, I can TK my character to the object so that then he can pick it up. Okay, so I have options that way. Or I have a stealth figure. They're out in the open. I can't use smoke cloud this turn. Oh, I TK an object underneath my character. Now he's stealth. My opponent now has to blow up an object, which is an action on their end, so that they can target my stealth figure versus them getting a free shot on my stealth figure. Okay, so telekinesis in the mid game is about making sure that you can get those figures or objects or whatever you need into the position for you to make a offensive gesture. Okay, and I don't mean double birds, okay? I mean tactically offensive gesture. Okay, so moving into the late mid game. Yes, I did say late mid game. We're not quite in the end game or late game. We're moving to the late late middle part of the end game. I'm even confusing myself. We're moving into the later part of the mid game. Telekinesis takes on another role. If you so choose, most players don't do it. You can either A, telekinese your figures around for a better position, moving them back or sideways. Most of the time people only think forward, but you can pull a figure back. They don't have to roll breakaway. But you now also can target an opposing character and just say, I'm going to TK you up to me. Or I'm going to TK you next to, Big Bubba with the Ultra Heavy. Or I'm going to TK my opponent's figure into the lava pit or into the open air because they're not a flyer. TK becomes a lot more dangerous because you are able to move your opponent. Now, of course, you have to land the attack and all that, and you have to make sure that you have a TKer that can do that numbers-wise with attack value. But all that aside, if you have a TKer and they can legally see the target, you might have to actually consider what is better for me offensively, TKing my opponent or TKing my own figure or just, doing some other action. So that's where it gets really interesting at the tail end of the mid game. When we're going into the end game, TK has different roles depending on what your momentum is in the game. Let's start with poor momentum because that is the more complex thing to look at. If you are having poor momentum at the end of the game, you have several options that happen that you can do with TK. The first off is retreat. Tactical retreat is your medic in the starting area and you are all the way on the other end of the field. Run. You can automatically use TK to run. A lot of people don't do that. If you had probably used TK to run sooner in the mid game, You may not have been in this bad situation in the late game. Okay, so that's the first one, is to retreat. The second is to hide. It's another way of looking at run. Oh, that square that my figure needs to get just outside of range of their big attacker, I would lose 130 points versus losing my 50-point TKer. Yeah, I'll TK my 150-point guy and sacrifice my TKer so that they can't get my 150-point guy. Yeah, I'll do that. So you're in a sacrificial mode. You're going to go hide this other character so that you can sacrifice your TKer. Okay, that is an option. So you can hide and sacrifice. You can do both of those things. Okay, that's if you're on the, oh my gosh, I'm losing end. And so you're either trying to rally or just mitigate losses or just make sure the other guy doesn't get as many points. Okay, and all of those are valid game goals. Don't let somebody say, well, you're managing losing, just sort of give up. No, my opponent has to earn their points. I'm not just going to give points to my opponent, because who knows, me, giving up my opponent points may allow them to skyrocket in the rankings and ensure that I don't have a chance versus, me, getting some weird scenario where I might end up having a chance, or somebody else I know having a chance, or making the competition tougher. Tougher competition makes people strive harder, which makes a more competitive meta, which refines the player base. Okay. All right. So if you're winning Endgame, what is TK doing? TK in the endgame is doing the following. First off, it's allowing you to solidify on your offense. Okay, you can make sure that your shots are always in the precise angle that they need to be. The next thing that it allows you to do is negate support. And I'm not just talking about support the power, but I'm talking about support abilities. Probability control, outwit, perplex. You can move your figure to block line of fire. You can try to make an attack roll to have, his own figures block line of fire, even though that's less effective. You can move up and TK up your guy so that he's basing the opponent in the medic, or just the medic, or just the opposing offensive character with your own piece stopping support. Okay, so now your opponent has to roll breakaway, so that they can go off and use support. So that's another action that they have to spin. That's not offensive. Okay, so TK can allow you to just solidify the end game in your favor, because then it's all about, hey, there are any pieces in the back that need to get up real quick. They need to get up to the forefront of the battle. So now you have, your own support figures, your perplex, your outwit, or whatever, that have been keeping a safe distance back, now are in a position of like, okay, we need to get up here because we need to get our little shots off, or we need to keep doing what we're doing, because in all honesty, most support pieces cannot keep tempo with battle, definitely when you have TK around. Okay, now when we look at some of the more advanced tactics with TK, really it comes with TK and hypersonic speed, with a hypersonic speeder with range. Now, the following I am about to say is very, very old school shenanigans. So old school that, depending on the meta environment in which you're listening to, it may have made a comeback, or it may be on its way out. Okay? Or it's like, huh, what? What's this? Bear with me. TK yo-yoing. TK yo-yoing really just started when someone said, hey, let me combine Superman with hypersonic speed and a TKer, with two TKers. So what'll end up happening is Superman has a 10 movement. He would hypersonic speed up, attack, doing a ranged attack using exactly half his movement, and then move back to the square in which he was TK'd, and then the second TKer would bring him back, Superman that is, to the starting area or whatever area. And thus, you on your turn cannot shoot Superman at all, unless you too have a TK yo-yo. But Superman's first, target is always your TK. And if Superman takes out one of your TKers, it is guaranteed that you are not going to be able to close the distance before you take 15 to 20 clicks of damage. I'm just saying that's how it is. So the TK yo-yo by far is one of the more apex offensive strategies of using TK. It can be used with a charger. It can be used with a running shotter. It can be used with a stationary figure. If you have a figure that has range combat expert, and let's say they have like 4 base damage and range combat expert, then yeah, you just TK them up. They take their shot. You TK them back. Is the amount of swing that the stationary figure has is less? Yeah, but you just did 6 damage. Okay, so when it all's weighed in, TK yo-yoing is very, very effective. Okay, the next thing that you have to look at with TK from a strategy perspective is really just setting up what's I like to call the TK launcher. Now, the TK launcher involves, in your early game, moving a TKer out to a safe spot while having a secondary TKer. Okay, the secondary TKer stays at home in the starting area. The first TKer moves out. When the first TKer moves out, an interesting thing happens. You can either TK out that first figure or not. It's up to you. But preferably, you don't really want to TK out that first person unless you're home TKer. You need to have them push afterward. Okay, so by moving up one of the TKers, you're able to, in your next turn, TK out one figure into the range of the second TKer, and then that TKer TKs out your figure to wherever parts unknown on the map, so that you're able to do something ridiculously offensive. Now, note, when I say something ridiculously offensive, it's usually something along the lines of, this figure can take care of itself no matter what my opponent does. So you can see this with Unspoken. By TKing up twice, you're able to drop Unspoken into your opponent's starting area pretty much on turn 2. And your opponent won't be able to react really easily. So that's one option. And you have other options too. You can, oh, look, I slinged out Superman. He hypersonic speed, smacked, the con artist or smacked, the Hulk, and then ran back. You always can do that. But unlike the slingshot, the TK railroad line is a one-way trip. Nobody's really coming back from that. Okay. So it allows for a little bit more reach, usually about 4 to 5 squares on average, but it's not meant to go and retrieve the target. It's meant to be like, we're dropping you behind enemy lines. Here's your Bowie knife and your paperclip, your pair of tweezers, and a gas mask. Come back alive, MacGyver, and that's it. All right, so training. What are we going to do to train? Well, that's easy. We're going to play around with one TKer the first game, and the second game we are going to play around with 2 TKers. What I want you to do is we're going to play a 500-point game, and the main reason I want us to play a 500-point game is so that we can fit in all these key elements, a nice substantial attacker, multiple support figures, and secondary attackers, whatever else. But I want you to get into the habit of A, TKing a figure forward, then B, pulling that figure back when needed, C, targeting an opposing character so you can TK them, and then, D, TKing objects for whatever advantage that you can make. All right? Whether it's TKing objects out from underneath the person or TKing objects underneath a figure or next to a figure, I want you to practice those things, okay? So by doing this, it's going to give you a lot more scope on how to use TK. All right. Thank you for listening. I know this was a little bit longer training section, but it's a power that can be really utilized to your advantage.